internet, and welcome once again to the always online multiplayer gaming podcast brought to you by MMOBomb.com, your home for all things multiplayer related. I'm your host, Mike Byrne, aka Magicman. As always, Old Glory giving himself a da-bomb in chat already. Da-bomb to me, managed to catch the stream. Yeah, we haven't seen you live for a while. I know you've always been watching because you emailed me on the question of the week. Much appreciated. Much appreciated. If you're watching this on YouTube or listening on Audible, Spotify, iTunes, any of the podcast platforms, thank you so much. Give it a like, a subscribe, thumbs up, turn those notifications on, and comment. Big part of the show, weekly bombs and question of the week answers, isn't doable without you. So on YouTube and right on MMOBomb.com, you get priority if you do it on MMOBomb.com. Put your weekly bombs and question of the week answers down below the video, and we'll include them in next week's show. Got another good question. Lots of great feedback from everybody. Couldn't include all of it, so I apologize if you commented and you don't hear it on the show. It's just for time. It's not because your comment sucked or I don't like you or you smell funny. Comment on the next one. Hopefully I can grab you and get you in there. Sometimes I got to trim them. And then there's sometimes that I ask a question that nobody cares about and I get one answer. You're definitely going to be included in the show. 100%. Joining me to go through all kinds of fun multiplayer gaming stuff today, Ms. Quinlan Bowers. What's up, Q?
I've been spending like the last 2 days just watching the Hugo drama unfold.
The Hugo drama? What the hell's that?
So the Hugos are a sci-fi award, right, for literature.
Oh, right.
And,
Yeah.
Right. Well, it was held in China this year because it's basically held wherever the convention that's associated with it, the Worldcon convention, is held.
Yeah.
And a whole bunch of authors that were nominated were just nixed right across the board. And people are looking at the authors that are nominated and they're like, okay, well, this is like, an author from Taiwan, and this is a Chinese author, but she writes stuff that's kind of can be seen as political. And this is Neil Gaiman, who writes a whole bunch of stuff with gay people in it. So there starts to be suspicions. And then the guy who is like in charge of it, because normally what they do is after the awards are given out, they put out a list and that shows everybody who was nominated, and if somebody was, removed, why, like if they were considered ineligible. And they do it immediately. And this didn't happen until 90 days later, but they didn't say why anybody was ineligible. So people started asking the guy who was in charge of it this time. And his response was, we did what the rules said. When people said, what were the rules? He would go, are you stupid? The rules are the rules. Like shit like that.
All right. A little drama in our literary world.
So he's doing all of this, and finally, like a couple of days ago, somebody leaked emails from the judging group, and it turns out, because people were like, well, maybe China made them do this, or
seems probable.
Whatever the case may be, and we still don't know for sure because there's still some questions. But basically, the emails are just these people planning which books to exclude based on censorship.
Interesting.
Like, behind the scenes. And it's the Chinese people, like whoever, the government isn't directly involved in the emails, but there's no confirming whether or not they were told that they needed to do it and they were just doing it. But they really rolled into it and just started picking things out, going like, Sandman episode 6 wasn't eligible. And nobody knows why. Like some of the others, it's really obvious because it says in the email, no, we have to exclude this because.
Yeah. Chat chiming in, CCP censorship, no doubt. So same thing happening to movie awards. Yeah, I feel like anytime you just like host an event in China, you just know that stuff's gonna happen. So don't host there or be ready to deal with it. Like, I don't know.
So now they're trying to retroactively. I don't think they're going to go back and change the awards or anything because the damage there has been done. But they're preparing for next year when they host in Scotland, and they're trying to be like, okay, this is not going to happen.
Yeah, a little more liberal country, the old Scots. Just when you compare the Scots to the Chinese, there's a bit more liberal bent there. Little bit. Also on the line, a Renaissance man himself. Well-versed in literature, I'm sure. Mr. Troy Blackburn, aka the Noob Fridge. What's up, boss?
So nominated for an award, the Noob Fridge Awards for Totally Awesome Dude.
You know what's really gonna suck is when you lose it. That's gonna be weird. Like you get nominated and lose your own award show.
I might just march up to the stage and slap myself.
Yeah, when the camera pans to you in the audience and you've got that look on your face, like I can't believe they won. I can't believe they won. Well, we do have a lot of multiplayer game stuff to get to, but first, we're going to kick off the news with a little, hey, what do you look for in an MMO? So let's get started. We've been spending the last couple of shows diving into some things like our MMOs that should be revived from the dead or given to a new company, and some other just like philosophical things. And last week we talked about that. Lots of you chimed in. So we're going to continue with another topic I've always wanted to discuss when there wasn't like a big marquee news item. So I threw it in the show today. It will be our question of the week. So pay attention, kiddies, so that you can chime in here. We're each going to talk about some of the things that must be in an MMO for us. Now, this is obviously just like what MMO would you like to come back from the dead? Very subjective and, you know, personal to you. I know Troy probably looks for very, very different things than I look for in an MMO. But when you see an MMORPG on the horizon and they're doing the hype train and they're showing this feature and this inclusion and this exclusion and they're going to have this but not have that, I want to know, like, what really says, okay, that's an MMO I'm going to check out. What has to be there? Just like the top 2 or 3 things that have to be there for you to even consider checking out an MMO coming onto the market. So, Q, let's start with you. Give us one of yours.
So the absolute one thing, and this is for almost any game, unless you're talking about like basic puzzle games or something, is story, the narrative. Whether or not I find that particularly interesting. So if you have a game that doesn't really seem to have much of that going on, or, you know, just a universe that's not really interesting, then I'm probably out.
So that's a weird one. And chat kind of went there too. Chat, don't forget, chime in with your comments under the show so I can include them next week on the question of the week. But a few people chiming in with story too. That's a weird one though, right? Because there's a lot of times where in the marketing campaign, they might give you like a snippet of an opening cutscene or anything, but you don't really see like deep dives into lore for a lot. Some games do it. So do you kind of have to like, if they don't catch you in those like small snippets of lore, are you just not checking it out? Or is it like a, hey, I'll have to check out everything to see if I like the story, and if I don't, then I just won't keep playing?
I mean, that's a good question. So some things I'm kind of shallow about, and I'll just look at it and be like, this looks like an environment I would like to play in.
Yeah, like Nightingale's been growing on you.
Well, the only reason that I was kind of on Nightingale to begin with was when they first announced it, it was strictly as first person.
Right. Something they rectified very quickly.
Right. So now that you can do either, because the rest of it is like the kind of it looks like an environment that I would like to play in, right? Like it's kind of got a more, I mean, it's a little weird because it's steampunky, but it's still a little more contemporary than a lot of the stuff, right? Because I don't go play medieval games,
right,
as a general rule. Like, so part of it will be that, like, if I don't know the exact narrative, at least knowing that it's in a world that I would like to play in is, you know, is enough to make me
at least
look at it.
Yeah, at least check it out, and then if the story doesn't grab you after a few hours, you just drop it. Troy, what about you? How important is story to you, and what's your number one?
My number one is it has to have good and interesting combat. That's what we do 90% of the time in MMOs is kill 10 rats, collect their butts, and take them back to the quest giver.
And mysteriously, some of them don't have butts.
Yes, interestingly enough, I just did a quest in Lord of the Rings Online where all of the wargs didn't have claws for some reason. So
They were
but yeah,
declawed.
they were all declawed. But yeah, it's gotta have good combat. It's gotta have unique animations for abilities. It's gotta have interesting attack chains. It's gotta not feel floaty. It's gotta have an impact to it, and that's the thing that I will immediately judge your MMO or your multiplayer game on is how is your combat.
So I would take it then you're more of a Terra action combat, BDO type stuff, or like a Guild Wars where it's kind of a mix of a soft tab target and things like that, than you are Final Fantasy 14, World of Warcraft, true tab targeting MMO.
If I was to make my own MMO, I would probably do action combat for sure. But that being said, I'm playing Lord of the Rings Online right now.
Yeah, I was just going to say, you just mentioned Lotro, which is as tab target as it gets.
It's tab targeting, but the animations are good. It feels impactful between the animations and the sound design of the game, which Lotro is underrated for their sound design and their soundtrack for their game. But it doesn't necessarily have to be action combat to do that. And like I'll look at things like ESO, which is very floaty, very uninteresting, very repetitive animation wise. It just doesn't feel great, and that's one of the reasons I never do. Like I'll play ESO every now and then when there's new content.
Yeah, it's always like
I never
three,
stick
though.
with it. Yeah, it's always down the list a little bit when everything else has been played out, and I've just wore everything out. Okay, I guess we'll jump back in ESO for a month or two.
So I don't care like what style combat it is. Tab target is fine by me. Action combat is fine by me. But I am with you in the respect that like it has to feel good.
Mm-hmm.
Like I know you're a big impact guy, right? Like you want big hammers to feel like big hammers and sound like big hammers. And I might be a little more forgiving in that than you. But however, I am the one that's like, I love the Secret World. Absolutely love it, but the combat had like zero impact and didn't feel great. And then Q, on your story front, absolutely. Like look at the MMOs that I kind of migrate to, right? It's World of Warcraft, it's Final Fantasy 14, it's Elder Scrolls Online, it's the Secret World. It's very, very narrative driven games, whether that's one big overarching narrative, something like Final Fantasy 14, or whether it's more like bite-sized narrative story bits in something like Elder Scrolls Online, right? Where every zone basically has its own kind of main story and sub-story going on. And there's a little bit of outside the zone crossover, particularly in like the original main campaign. But for the most part, it's smaller, bite-sized stories. So I'm definitely with you both on those. But my number one, and this is going to sound so dumb, I will play a game that has somewhat, and I think someone else said this, and Jira said, gameplay is top tier for me. I'll put up with a lot of jank if the gameplay is good, like Warframe and BDO. Lots of jank, but mechanically a blast to play. I'll put up with a little jank in the story. I'll put up with a little jank in the combat. Not to great degrees, but I played the Secret World forever. So clearly I will put up with subpar combat. If the dungeons are there.
Mm-hmm.
And that doesn't have to be like, classic World of Warcraft style dungeons. In fact, the Secret World was very, very kind of not that. They were instanced, but they were very, very different than you see. But that is like one of my key things. You got to have dungeons. If you have raids, all the better, but that's not a requirement for me. I'd like it to be there, but it doesn't have to be. It's one of the reasons that I was very, very interested in Wayfinder. Right? Troy, we talked about it. I love dungeons. Whether I can go in and do them solo, go in with a party and do them, man, Wayfinder sounds great. Give me the Warframe addictive gameplay loop on something like Wayfinder. Man, I'm all there for it. Now, it hasn't exactly panned out, and maybe that'll get better over time. There are other problems with Wayfinder, but dungeons are something I get really, really excited about. I love that instanced overcoming a challenge content. And the minute I hear an MMORPG doesn't, hey, we're not going to do dungeons or things like that, it's kind of why I wasn't really all that much into Guild Wars 2. initially. I know that's changed a lot over the years, but maybe a little too late. But like they didn't have dungeons per se, or they had those instances, but it wasn't like Trinity based, so everybody just kind of just went in and did whatever the hell they wanted to anyway. Like,
Yeah.
and I know what is it, Astrals? I know that's very different now these days, right?
The fractals.
Fractals. Yeah. Thank you. Dungeons. That's my perfect. Love it. Love that type of PvE content. Gotta be there. What's next on your list, Q?
I would actually say, community features.
Oh, okay.
So, and this is something that's aggravating me greatly about Final Fantasy 14 right this moment. So they have really good sets of community features. However, when they opened up data center travel and all the raiders are now on a different data center all the time, you can no longer communicate with your FC.
Yeah.
Like there's no communication there, and also you don't benefit from the buffs because you're on a different. But you have to go over to the other server now to do any major raiding and stuff like that because that's where everybody decided they're at. So like that kind of stuff is really important to me because all the years that I've been playing MMOs, one of the things that will make me fall out of an MMO is when like all my friends disappear.
Oh yeah. I mean that's mainstay there. Link shells don't work cross data center, Takal's asking.
No, not unless you use a modded link shell. Those are the only ones that work across data centers.
Whoa. Podcast getting banned by Yoshi P.
I'm just saying they exist. I'm not telling you to use them because I'm highly suspicious of those. Like, I don't see how they work without triggering something. But anyway.
You know what does work cross servers is Discord.
Discord does, yeah, but there's a bunch of stuff. Like I said, you don't benefit from your FC buffs if you're on a different server.
Yeah.
Which is fine if you're just going over and visiting somebody for some RP or something.
Yeah.
But if like you're on another server doing raiding, the ability to, use your food buff and your gear buffs are, would be useful.
Yeah, I don't know if this one's like super important to me. That's funny, right? Because it's an MMO, right? The whole point, like one of the big defining features of the genre is community and tons of people and doing things together. And I'm just kind of like, I don't care if you're there, Troy. Cool.
I'm talking about raiding, not squadrons.
Yeah, that's different. Like Troy, if you're gonna come on and hang out with me and we're gonna run some dungeons, great. If you're not, also great. I don't care. Like I am so blasé about community when it comes to MMOs. I mean, it's certainly what makes it feel like an MMO. We're gonna talk about a game that kind of is billing itself as an MMO in a little bit, but I have question marks about it. But yeah, I don't know if that's it. Troy, how do you feel? Like, is community really important to you? Being able to get into big groups and do your thing?
A little bit. It didn't make my list of 3 here, but I do like being like part of a community. I'm not a big engagement guy myself, but I like having that chat box going off, and I pick up things here and there from other people who are talking, and it's a lot easier to do that in a guild than like world chat or something like that. So
yeah, I mean, certainly I like it for it to be there, but I don't like it. If you were billing an MMO tomorrow and you were like, yeah, we're not doing guilds. We're not doing guilds or free companies or anything like that. I'd be like, okay, that doesn't matter to me. Sure.
Yeah, it wouldn't keep me from playing the game.
What do you got for number 2, Troy?
Number 2 has to be a world that I am engaged with and care about playing in.
Now, this is separate from narrative. This is the world proper.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, this is the world itself. One of the reasons I do go back to ESO, Elder Scrolls Online, is because the way the world is set up, the world building is fantastic. I love the way you have to go and explore and find the missions, and all the missions are voice acted, and it's just an engaging, interesting world to take part in. The combat not so great. But I keep going. When I do go back, I go back for the world and the stories it's telling, and the world itself, the way the world is built, and the delves you go into, which are sort of like walk in and you could group with people if you want to. You can run it together, or you can run it solo. It doesn't really matter all that much. I just like the way the world is built in ESO, and if I was to build my own MMO, that's the way I would build my world, is in a very similar way to that.
I think I could see that. Kasasha says, I spent hundreds of hours hunting treasures in ESO, especially in Rivenspire. I had a route mapped. Yeah, sometimes like just the environment, right? Like, can you get lost in the environment and the way it looks and the way it feels to explore? Yeah, I could go with you on that. Like, I don't think is it? Well, I don't know, because Q, you and I back in the day when we saw the original trailers for Air, Ascent Infinite Realm, which eventually became Elion and then eventually became defunct. When we saw the initial trailers, both you and I were like, that looks like a world I would like to play in. And it was based on nothing but the like visual aesthetic of the world. And of course, airships didn't hurt at the time.
Airships never hurt.
Yeah, airships never hurt. I think I could go with you on that, Troy. I don't know if it's like a deal breaker for me, but I mean, I guess so, because if your world looks like ass, I'm just not going to play it. Like, you know, there's a reason that you have fantasy or tech worlds. Which do you prefer? Kasasha wants to know.
Usually fantasy is what I end up going for. I do enjoy tech worlds. I sort of enjoyed the sort of Magitech aspect of Rift. You know, when you're playing the Defiant side, they have a lot of Magitech stuff, so that really did it for me.
Q, if I had to guess, this is absolutely, out of just those two, it's tech worlds for you. I know you're not a high fantasy kind of gal when it comes to MMOs.
Well, to most anything, really. Yeah, I like fantasy, but I'm not. There's fantasy and then there's fantasy, right? Like, and if it's like medieval kind of fantasy, Lord of the Rings type stuff or whatever, while I'll sit and watch Lord of the Rings, it's not really my jam. So, but yeah, stuff that's like magic in current world and stuff like that I'm down with.
My number 2 is music. I know that's like, should be like further down most people's lists, I think, but there is nothing that will suck me into a game more than a compelling and interesting soundtrack to the world. And I guess you could kind of take that a little further, Troy, like you did, and talk about sound design itself, sound effects of spells and combat and things like that. But soundtrack, give me some dungeons with a lit soundtrack, you'll never see me again. You're like, just that's it. Just give me those things. Soundtrack has got to be there. There are games that I have literally stopped playing because the soundtrack is either non-existent or is just bad. And I can't. Like, and I know, right? Like the answer is, oh, we'll just mute it, put on Netflix on the side or whatever, and do it. Nope. I'm gonna go play something and just blast the music while I'm playing. The people have their sound on when playing MMOs. Yes, I am one of those. Unless I have to be like listening to something else at the same time. Yes, I am absolutely. Warframe soundtrack is great. It is very good.
I'm gonna say, even when it has a good soundtrack, I'm usually a music down, something else playing to the side.
I know a lot of people are like that. Like I
I
feel
turn
wrong
my
when I do it.
Well,
Do you really?
I turn my music down in XIV, and that way I can hear the environment better.
Yeah.
Like I would rather hear what's going on around me than hear the music. Although a lot of times I end up just turning on regular music or something to watch. But weirdly enough, though, in like Genshin or Star Rail, I leave the music on.
So it's not a deal breaker for you, but you will rock a good soundtrack if it has one.
Yeah, and I don't know, like I like the music in Final Fantasy, but after a while it just doesn't vibe as well for me as
yeah. There are some tracks in 14 that I'm like, I'm kind of sick of hearing this. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anything else Anything else on your list, Troy?
Content is king. You got to have interesting places for me to go, things for me to do. Don't give me dailies 6 hours into your game. Like I want to play a zone and then know that there's another zone to go to, and that I'm going to see different enemies and fight different things and explore different areas.
Fair. Q, anything else on your list?
So not for older games because they're older and therefore they get a pass, but newer games that are coming out, I'm always looking at them having accessibility options, because that's just become something that's really important to me. Not just for me, but for other people too. So if they're not bothering to put or at least make an effort for accessibility, then I'm probably not going to be that interested in their game.
Angira saying reasonable optimization. If it runs like ass, no matter how good it is, I'm not going to play it. Looking at you, Phantasy Star Online 2, New Genesis. Yeah, we kind of stayed away from like specific tech stuff like that, right? That's not a feature. If the game runs like crap, then it runs like crap. This was more geared at like content or things in the game. The last one I will probably put out there, and this is going to sound weird, I prefer and am much more drawn to MMORPGs in established IPs. That's not to say that I won't be interested in an MMORPG that's totally brand new, like, you know, Wayfinder. I know that's not MMORPG. It's more co-op-y with a shared worldy thing. Yeah, I get it. But yeah, I'll play that because it's got the dungeons and things like that. But I am just like infinitely more drawn to Worlds of Warcrafts, you know, Final Fantasies, Elder Scrolls Online. I guess the Secret World would be a little bit of an exception, right? That's an example of they drew me in other ways, and I happened to like their IP once I got there. But I like, you know, Lord of the Rings Online. Those, if the more familiar I am, and I guess this is everything, right? Every game genre. The more familiar I am with an IP, the more likely you are going to at least hook me on day one, but then you need to have that other stuff to keep me on day 100. I'm an IP chaser. Star Wars The Old Republic, perfect example, right? Like, love the hell out of that game forever. I know, Troy, you still play that damn thing.
Yeah, I still play it when new content comes out.
All right, let's move on. We're going to circle back. Question of the week. We want to know from you. Known IP certainly helps. Yep. It's also less risky, right? Which is weird. Well, it's like more risky, but less risky, right? It's less risky because you don't have to sell an IP nobody's ever heard of with your marketing budget. But it's more risky in the respect that if you do anything wrong with the damn IP, you're screwed. Like,
well, I think it's also sometimes more risky in the fact that devs can rest on their laurels.
True.
And they can also have these really big ideas that they think they're going to be able to do because they're that dev.
Right.
And then they just fail at it. So...
And you also got the money investment into existing IPs too, most of the time.
Yeah. You know, that's Tencent getting into a lot of those types of contracts and not liking them because of the royalty splits after they have to monetize things. Anyway, let's talk about some new and some upcoming things. Brand new, if you want to check this out on Steam now, there was a demo for Steam Next Fest, but now you have to buy it if you want to. And this is from Lunark and Behavior Interactive. And this is Islands of Insight. I've been playing this quite a bit now, and I'm going to do a first look, I think. I think I'm going to post a first look next week. If you like puzzle games, this is for you. Think The Witness, if you remember The Witness. Not so much like Myst or Riven, where they were very like obscure and, you know, like you had to figure out this whole environment and do this and this. No, this is like more like The Witness. You're running around in a shared open world. There's a puzzle right here. Go ahead, click on it, do your thing, solve it, move on through the world, find the next one, solve it, kind of like that. Now, they are billing this as an MMO. I don't know why. It's a little bit weird. It is an open world, shared open world, so I can run through there and see a bunch of other players. There's no chat, though. Like, there's no chat. You can party up, but it doesn't really do anything. Like, there's no puzzles that require more than one person to be doing them. And if the three of us partied up, it would really just be the three of us walking around, kind of clicking on the same puzzles, and each of us doing them. It's not like I can manually help you, Q, or give you a hint by doing something on your puzzle board. Or no, I mean, we could talk via Discord, and I could say, hey, do that. But it's like you can party up for no real benefit. It is very weird. There's a debate right now on, like, is this being billed as an MMO so that DRM-wise it's always online? Shouldn't this just be really a single-player game? At one point, there was some co-op stuff in early builds, apparently, but that's been removed and likely isn't coming back. Maybe it will, but likely isn't. But, man, setting weird MMO features in the game aside, I have really enjoyed just like putting on Netflix, putting some music on or whatever. It is the most chillax MMO I've ever played, even if it's not really an MMO, right? There are thousands of puzzles ranging from, you know, hey, we're going to show you a board, a grid, and some of the blocks in the grid are black and some of them are white, and you can't change those, but you can toggle all the other blocks between white or black. And here's what we want you to do this time. We want you to connect all the black dedicated squares, but don't create a black square of 4 while you do it. And you fill in the grid. And then it just compounds on those. And then there's sightline things, right? And look through this tumble of rings, but only look through the gold ones when you click. Don't let your line of sight go through any of the blue ones. There's no combat. There's no monsters. There's no bosses or anything like that. There's weird camera effect things like, right, be in this position to line up all these things to make a ring. And it just keeps compounding. As you're gaining experience, gaining levels, you're gaining new abilities that help you traverse the world to access more puzzles, getting a double jump, getting a glide, getting that. You're leveling up. There's dailies, MMO-wise, stuff like that. It is just, I am really enjoying it, even though the MMO aspect is totally weird to me at the moment. There's really not a point to it being an MMO. Absolutely loving it. Like, here's one of those white-black tile puzzles I just told you about, and the rules are over on the right. And, of course, all these tons of variants of puzzles, and they obviously get more complex as you go. Really enjoying it. It is buy to play. I think it's like $30, something like that. They were nice enough to send us a key for review purposes. I am going to end up posting a first look because that MMO aspect of it is really weird and I think worthy of a first look by itself. I know it'll be a little more niche episode, but I can't speak highly enough about it. If you just want to zone out for 2 or 3 hours, solve 20, 30, 40 puzzles, and just relax, it's one of the best games to do it to right now. I'm really enjoying it, but I'm a big puzzle guy. Troy, can I interest you, or are you just not a puzzle dude?
I'm not really a puzzle dude. It does look like a cool game. I will give it that. It's not that the game is turning me off. It's just that I'm not a big puzzle guy.
Yeah, if you're not a big puzzle guy, this ain't it for you. Like, that's all there is to do, Q. That's it. Go do puzzles.
I mean, yeah. So it's funny because I did watch the video and I was like, yeah, I definitely would play this. And in Journey, it's kind of like you talking about the multiplayer aspect. It almost sounds like Journey.
Yeah.
Because in Journey, you don't, the most help you can give each other is like making the little sounds that can boost you when you're flying or whatever. And like maybe, just kind of run over and stand by something to be like, this is where you need to be.
That is,
like,
that is absolutely what goes on here. It's like a bunch of deaf mutes running around the planet. And we're like, okay, I'm going to help Q with this maze. Here's how I'm going to do it.
You're gonna jump over here. Like,
like that's exactly what's going on in game.
But yeah, so it reminds me of those, and right, I love all of the games from literally that game company.
Yeah.
Because that's who made Journey. But the other thing that I found interesting is that I sat and watched the video, or the guy talking, and if this doesn't work out for them, he could do meditation videos.
It does make me nervous, though, because if it doesn't work out for them, it goes away. Because it's online, true. Like, I don't see them being like, okay, we're going to take the online requirement away and you could go do it. And there's the silly, of course, a silly narrative reason why you can see everybody, right? Because you're a seeker and you're all trying to do this. I'm not going to spoil any of that stuff. It's not like super compelling anyway. But it was like kind of like, yeah, we're going to narratively put in here, kind of like Final Fantasy 14 originally when they were like, yeah, we're not going to see Viera and here's why. You know, there's a narrative lore reason, but we're going to break it anyway. I'm going to be really sad if this doesn't succeed or do well, because I just see it going away then, and that makes me a sad panda. But
I'm not wishing for it to go away. I'm just saying if things don't work out, this particular guy could go do meditation videos for a living, because it was just that soothing to listen to him talk about and describe a game.
Yeah, I mean, it seems to be doing okay. There's 1,500 people playing it now. They hit their all-time peak at launch of 1,700, and they've just been kind of staying right there. Now, granted, it's only a couple days old as far as official launch, so we'll have to watch it over the next coming months. But if you like puzzles, man, it's definitely a chillax MMO to just solve some puzzles and look at weird people running around. This isn't new, but is changing. Troy, sorry. What is going on the Guild Wars 2 side of things as weapons proficiencies get closer?
Yeah, so they ran a beta late last year, back in November, and they received a lot of feedback on the new weapon proficiencies coming to each class. And it sounds like they're actually willing to make some pretty major changes to some of them, especially like the things like the short bow for the Ranger, which kind of flopped during the beta and nobody really seemed to enjoy it at all. But yeah, they're really listening to the feedback and implementing a lot of different tweaks and changes. Oh, sorry, for the engineer.
Okay,
yeah.
no, I'm just making sure I was right in my head.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, yeah, engineer. Of course, the Ranger has short bow. Already.
Yeah, I was gonna be like, well, if Ranger's short bow sucks, then that's they should have fixed that a while ago.
yeah. Sorry for the engineer. The short bow flopped. But yeah, they're listening to a lot of feedback and making a lot of changes. There's a lot of good stuff in this update. You should really go check out the post on MMOBomb.com. They've got a lot of feedback to the feedback, as I like to say, and a lot of changes coming in for the weapons for each class.
Speaking of Rangers, though, maces for Rangers does seem to be like the overwhelming favorite right now, as far as the weapons proficiencies go. Giving Rangers maces, yeah, people like that. People like that. Q, I'm going to skip one here. What's going on in the world of SWTOR, Star Wars, The Old Republic?
Man, I wrote this and then forgot all about it.
So did EA.
Well, apparently, there's the update 7.4.1 that they recently did a stream on. Honestly, the biggest news out of it that I've seen people talking about, because it made me laugh. They were like, SWTOR is doing something that all MMO should do. Genshin Impact did it first, and that's the date night missions. Like, they're very excited about that. So you can spend some personal time with your favorite companions, that kind of thing. But it's also bringing in the Galactic Season 6 and with some more missions and the reward track, and apparently you're going to be spying on other species in the galaxy for this family.
That seems healthy.
It seems like a good way to probably get caught and die, but and then the other big thing that they were discussing in it was there will be people will be able to transfer to the new server in the Asia Pacific region. When they do, they'll in order to do it, you have to have a character at least level 20. You can't take more than 15 million credits with you. And if you're a subscriber who's been subscribed since January, you can get 16 free transfers. But everybody who's not subscribed, for every character you want to transfer, it'll cost you 1,000 credits. So, and they also in the stream teased a little bit of update 7.5, but it was a super brief, like, hey, this is happening kind of thing.
And let me just say, 15 million credits, I know that sounds like a lot, but if you play the game, that's really not that much. I don't even try hard to make money in the game.
For
and
6 teleports.
Yeah.
With the inflation in that game.
I've got some 700-800 million credits, and I don't try like to make credits in the game or anything like that. I don't sell stuff on like the auction house and stuff like that, but that's not as much credits as it sounds like. So they are restricting credits going into the new server for the new economy on the server.
A few financials have been posted on MMOBomb. If you're interested in those, go take a look. First up, we've got Nexon, who is you know, a little bit of goods and a little bit of bads, but more goods for Nexon financially. MapleStory and some other games are struggling a little bit. You know, but that'll do that when you try to sell things and then get slammed with a fine because you weren't honest about the odds for those things. However, on the flip side, the finals is being referred to as the company's next forever franchise.
I hate that phrase. I hate forever franchise, forever game. It's not forever. It's only there until you decide to shut it off.
They said it's forever.
Anymore.
They said it's forever.
Forever.
It's not. It is not.
Early
it is
performance
there until you quit making money off of it.
Early performance has surpassed even our own expectations, and we believe it is well on track to become Nexon's next major forever franchise. Next major forever franchise. And then on the flip side, Embracer Group, who's already laid off about 1,400 people, they're likely to continue to lay off more people as they continue their downsizing. They talked about an all-time high quarter from a revenue standpoint. Everything else was total butts. Like their amount of debt did not decrease the way they needed to. Obviously, their profits are not there, but they referred to it as an all-time high quarter because of revenues, and that they're going to do whatever it takes to, their quote, not mine, maximize shareholder value in any given situation. A company that's already laid off 1,400, shuttered a number of studios, and looks to be continuing to do so going forward. So that's Embracer. And then Pearl Abyss, BDO is down a lot. EVE is up, but because EVE is substantially smaller, it's not able to carry the weight. So Pearl Abyss as a whole is down. If you want more details on any of those financials, check out the articles posted in the last 24 hours over at MMOBomb.com. And finally, on this front, the Xbox presentation yesterday that everybody's been in an uproar for the last week on whether or not they're going to make consoles, whether things are going to be cross-platform. That presentation was boring as shit. It was boring as hell. And all they said is, yeah, we're still going to make consoles. And yes, we're going to start making some more games cross-platform. We've got 4 coming up. We're not telling you which ones. We'll let the companies do it. Now, there are rumors and insiders that have already speculated, like Sea of Thieves is one of them and a few others. No rumors on Indiana Jones and some of the Bethesda stuff and things like that coming out. And then Diablo 4 is coming to Game Pass in March. So, yeah.
Surprise, surprise.
Yeah,
Well, they said all the Blizzard games will be coming
eventually.
to Game Pass. It's just starting with Diablo.
Yeah, it's going to start with Diablo. Yeah, so boring-ass presentation. And yeah, they're still going to make consoles. In fact, the next one is going to be, let me find the buzzwords. Hold on. Where's the quotes? Buzzword. Largest technical leap you will have ever seen in a hardware generation. I'm sure it will be exactly that.
I wonder if that just means they're going to take more stuff out of it. Because that's usually what happens when it's the largest technical leap. It usually means that they're taking something out, right? Like, ooh, we made this big technical leap and CDs no longer exist in laptops. Like, that kind of thing.
Finishing up with some news that makes you just sigh. Skull and Bones releases today. Woohoo! Now, some of you may...
Oh, is that today?
Yeah, if you bought the game, you may have already been playing it for a couple of days, or maybe you took part in the open beta, but it is officially launch day for Skull and Bones, and it's $70 console price tag, $60 on I think it's only 60 on PC. Don't quote me on that, though. I don't remember off the top of my head. So this is definitely a game. Definitely a game.
That was a concern at one point, though.
Yeah, it definitely was.
So it is now a game. We could quit worrying about that.
Yeah, obviously Ubisoft did not give us keys. So I don't know how this is gonna go. We'll see. But here's the news that makes you roll your eyes. Ubisoft CEO Yves Guillemot, Troy, was asked on a investor call about the $70 price tag for Skull and Bones, and then saying, hey, it emulates a live service model. Like, why is it a $70 price tag? Couldn't you have gotten more people into the live service model without that barrier? And this is what he said. This is what he actually said out loud. He actually said this out loud. He defended that price by calling Skull and Bones a a quadruple A game. You'll see that Skull and Bones is a fully fledged game. Well, that's good. Thanks. It's a very big game, and we feel that people will really see how vast and complete the game is. It's a really full quadruple A game that will deliver in the long run. It probably won't surprise you that reviews so far are mediocre at best.
I was going to say the reviews say otherwise so far of the early access reviews and what I've seen so far this morning. Mediocre at best is what most people are describing it as. Is pretty mediocre, not necessarily bad, just definitely not quadruple A for sure.
Definitely not $70.
Maybe not even triple A. Yeah, definitely not $70 for a live service game for sure.
Quadruple A. We have a whole new category, and blazing the trail is Ubisoft of all places.
It makes me a little sad that it is like, falling into the mediocre category, because one, it looks very pretty. At least the stuff you see of it looks very pretty, and it's like, oh, cool, like interesting, nice environment, whatever, and all of that stuff. And then it's like, but it is Ubisoft, and it took them a million years to make this game, and there was a whole bunch of drama, and now they want $70 for it. Like, none of this sounds good.
And then if you needed a few more size, an Overwatch 2 lead detailed why they left the company back in November of last year on Twitter this past week, basically accusing the company of more management shenanigans, lying about certain things, and this is all according to Chris Sayers from the Overwatch 2 team. Didn't know, was misinformed or lied to, depending on which allegation you're reading, as to pay for his new promotion, what the job responsibilities were, was asked to let people go that were not returning to office because they were waiting for the company to make medical exceptions or accommodations, being the primary caregiver for their parent, and accusations saying that management said, yeah, we're not going to do that for a junior. It fits with a lot of the reason I'm bringing it up, right? We've heard these stories, and we will continue to. The problem with this one, Troy, that makes me like, is this is not somebody telling a story of Activision Blizzard 2 years ago, right? I left the company in 2020 because of XYZ. I left the company in 2021 or 2019 because of XYZ. This is as of last year. Chris left in November, which means there are still, if these allegations are true, and Activision did not return a comment for us on this one, so no comment from their side. If they're true, they still have problems there. They still have leadership problems there.
I don't think that's really that surprising.
My favorite part of his story, though, was because you didn't use a term that he used in all of his long-ass series of tweets, and that was that they gaslit him.
Yep.
Is what he said. And where that came in was near the end, after like a couple of months of this going on and him, reportedly not getting his title or the pay increase they promised him for taking on the leadership role. and he's asking them about it, and their response is to laugh at him and say, "No, we didn't tell you we were going to do that."
Yeah.
Even though, according to him, before he took on the role, he was like, "So this is, how is this going to work? What am I getting out of it?" Right? And they laughed at him and told him, "No, we never told you we were going to do that. This is a lateral change." And then they tell him later on that, "Oh, we wouldn't." But when he discovers he's being paid less than everybody else with the same title, that it's because he's in the UK, and why would we pay you when we don't have to?
Yep. And again, this is one person's accusations against the company. He wasn't obviously like posting documents and things like that, that make it 100% credible. Do I have any reason to doubt Chris? No, I personally don't. But it's also a situation where Activision is even reaching out to them. I was like, I know they're unlikely to comment here because the comment would have to be about a specific employee's HR file. Like, that would have to be part of the discussion and isn't likely to. We're going to continue to hear these stories. I just don't like hearing these types of stories because the truth, right, probably somewhere in the middle, maybe a little more towards Chris' side if Activision's still misbehaving in certain ways. But either way, that doesn't put the needle in a good place for Activision years after lawsuits and settlements. It just doesn't. And even the FTC is not happy right now with Microsoft and Activision because they went ahead and laid off those 1,900 people after the acquisition. So the FTC is like, whoa, wait a minute. This doesn't jive with what you were telling us to get us to approve the merger. Microsoft says, oh, yeah, no, dude, it's totally consistent. Consistent with broader trends in the gaming industry, Activision was already planning on eliminating a significant number of jobs while still operating as an independent company. The recent announcement, thus, cannot be attributed fully to the merger. More important, Microsoft continues fully to stand by its representations to this court.
Except you didn't. You laid off people. And you can use the excuse that Blizzard was going to already all you want to. There were redundancies within Microsoft after that merger. You knew people were going to be let go. I didn't know it was going to be to this extent for sure.
It was extremely heavy-handed. Extremely.
Yeah.
Heavy-handed.
But you say, you're holding up your end of the bargain with the courts or what you represented to the courts, except the part that you're not, because you let 1,900 people go.
And finally,
I would expect a number of layoffs just because of redundancies, but not that many.
Yeah, and the number, while heavily focused at Activision Blizzard, was across Microsoft, right? There were people in other studios that were impacted in that 1,900, but yes, the overwhelming majority of them were at ABK. Last thing before we do the weekly bombs, Troy, EverQuest 2 players a little bit miffed again. Maybe not as much as they were miffed previously, but still miffed and maybe getting more miffed by the minute. What the hell's going on here?
Yeah, so apparently they've introduced a new thing to the cash shop again, and it's called a Dark Paw Hero Adventuring Boost, which on its own doesn't sound too aggressive, too bad of a thing. It's a level boost, and you can level up and be playing more current content and play with your friends and all that kind of stuff. Except they included two types of or a type of currency and something they call status in the game, which is another type of progression in the game with these boosts. And apparently, after recent nerfs to the in-game ability to acquire said currency, the chrono currency, and the status within the game itself, now the only consistent way to get it is to buy it through this boost. And players are complaining that, with nerfs to the in-game systems, that it's just not reasonable to go out and farm and get the things that you need with the chrono currency. And that to do so is now beyond hours of grinding just to get one item of the runes or whatever you buy with the chrono currency. And that they're actively trying to steer people towards the cash shop in order to acquire currency and status.
Huh. Like, I'm all for boosts. Like, whatever. If you don't want to use them, don't buy them. And I see that attitude in the EverQuest forums when I was researching some of this stuff an awful lot. If you don't want this, don't buy it. If you don't want a boost, don't buy it. And blah, blah, blah. But the other part that I think you pointed out that needs to go in that discussion is the way you acquire these in-game was nerfed ahead of this.
Yep.
That's the part that isn't just like, vote with your wallet. They wouldn't sell it if people didn't buy it. I get it. That's true. But they actually changed the way you acquire these and how often you can acquire these in game before they did this. That's a bit shady. That's a bit shady. So hopefully, just like the last time this happened with the raid stuff in the previous pack for EverQuest, hopefully there'll be some player-centric changes with this bundle. Let's slide over into the
most people are just most people are just calling for just the increase the number of the currency and the status that you get in the game. They're not even. It's not even about the boost itself.
Yeah, what's funny is they're just saying like put it back to where it was. It's like we're not even asking for an increase. Just give us what we had.
Yeah.
Let's slide over to the weekly bombs. Troy, you're up.
I'm giving a dub bomb this week to Lord of the Rings Online. Been having a lot of fun in it. I'm doing the level 50 stuff, the end game level 50 stuff, the stuff that you did after you hit level 50, the original level cap of the game. There's a ton of story content and things to do just to finish up that original vanilla Lord of the Rings Online story content. So I've been spending several days just doing that stuff before I even get to Mines of Moria, because this is my first character to get that far into the game. So I want to see all the story and everything that went on in the game back when level 50 was the cap. Not quite finished yet. I'm on book 15 now. So I'm just about done with that. So I can just about hit Mines of Moria. The leveling for it isn't very good, but the story itself and the content that I'm seeing is a hell of a lot of fun. So dub bomb.
Cute.
I'm going to give it the bomb to Larian for really understanding that the Baldur's Gate 3 audience is a bunch of horny little gremlins and giving them exactly what they want.
Whoever's working their social media knows exactly what they are doing and who they are doing it for.
Well, it's not just the social media. It's literally, they've improved the kissing in the game, apparently the kissing animations in the game, and they want you to know it. So they're just dropping these videos on social media. And yeah, they really know their audience.
I'm going to give a fucking dub bomb to Islands of Insight. Absolutely loving it. I'm going to give an A bomb for a story that I wrote up late last night and pushed out. The day before was not back on Steam yesterday. That was a scam. So I'm going to give an A-bomb to a game that was on Steam called Carrot the Cat months and months and months and months before day before came out, changing its name once to GTA Brazil a few days ago, and then changing it to the day before yesterday, putting up all the stuff claiming that this was the new code name for the day before, selling it for $6 at less than 25% of the file size than the original game. I gotta wonder how many people bought it before Mytona officially was like, whoa, that's not us, Steam, take that down. So gonna give an A-bomb there. Old Glory chiming in chat. I don't have a bomb for you, so I'll put yours here. A bomb to me. Can't wait for Throne and Liberty so I can play it with old Lineage 2 friends and be disappointed in game after that. You might be. NCSoft's financials didn't. Throne and Liberty is lagging behind where they expected it to be. Guardian Veil debomb to the Nightingale dev update. Can't wait to play. A-bomb to Yves Guillemot's quadruple A game. Really? Yeah, Nightingale's just a few days away. Dev update was yesterday. Today was an 8-minute gameplay features trailer. We posted that, or we will post that. It's already written up and proof that just goes out right after the show today. Yes, there will be a show next week. From the viewers on YouTube and on MMOBomb, Misfit Rain, debombed Nightingale early release and my new computer. Bought a new laptop for my company just in time for Nightingale to release. Laptop is more powerful than my desktop computer now. Absolutely loving it. Congrats. Looking forward to it. Go ahead, Q.
Doggy V, I think what really killed WildStar was all the people saying WildStar is dead, yet I always had people to play it with, never had issues with difficulty with pugs and queues, and PvP were always great. So fucking weird.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree with you if we were just talking about max level stuff. If you tried to level, I always found like I could not get groups for earlier dungeons at all. at a certain point. It was just way too unpopulated in those lower level brackets. Go ahead, Troy.
Takal says, A-bomb to Kyle, 3 and out, Shanahan. FU in the play call sheet you wrote in on, bastard.
Yeah, 49ers taking the L. Kansas City Chiefs, Super Bowl champions. Yes, Q, that's a sports ball thing.
I know about that particular sports ball thing. People have been mad about it.
Baron Vagabond saying, DeBomb to Guild Wars 2 for listening to feedback on the new weapons and announcing appropriate changes. We couldn't agree with you more. Go ahead, Q.
Sasha, A-bomb to No Man's Sky free-to-play weekend. You start off having to farm boring stuff to repair your ship, no character creation or anything.
Yeah, I mean, it was worse. It used to be worse, if you could believe that. Go ahead, Troy.
Ninja Pandas, A-bomb to 2 weeks ago for the weather being absolute dog poo for fishing starting on Friday for the high gusts of wind and Saturday for the rain and cold.
Oof. Hopefully you're having some better weather now. Question of the week last week, what MMO needs to come back or change owners if it's still living? Tazim says, question of the week, I know I've been vocal about it, but Landmark for sure. The fact that you could create your own story-driven dungeons with the linking and triggering system was amazing. You could even create your own PvP battlegrounds at one point, but was sadly removed due to some issues. I would like to see 2 changes or additions. 1, fix those issues with the PvP system, and 2, introduce a claimless adventure island, a la mini EQ Next. It doesn't have to be that much bigger than the normal Landmark Island, with cities, settlements, PvP, and non-instance dungeons built with the contest winners' buildings. A lot of people would probably like to see Landmark come back in some way, shape, or form. Go ahead, Q. I know Troy would.
Zarian, I have a lot of requests. Defiance, Rift, EverQuest 2 graphics with the graphics and UI overhaul, Secret World, Dark Age of Conan, Wildstar, Warhammer, Vindictus, Ion, Terra, probably some more.
I think it was Dark Age of Camelot, just to be...
Okay. Yeah.
Dark Age of Camelot. That is quite the list, Czar.
That is a pretty...
That's quite... Defiance, that's one I forgot about.
I had too, but
Yeah.
you know, when I played Defiance, I did enjoy it.
Yeah.
I didn't like trying to tie it into the TV show thing just didn't work. But
I didn't like the redo Defiance 2050 or whatever that was called. I don't remember.
yeah.
I didn't like that one.
The OG Defiance for sure.
OG. Go ahead, Troy.
Cameron Bain says, games I would put back into rotation if they actually came back with support and got rid of bots. Silk Road Online from Joy Max we made. Decaron, 2 Moons, Acclaim Studios, then passed around. Bots with an exclamation point, I believe was Acclaim. Drift City, looks like EG if I recall. Digimon, Acclaim. Silk Road and Decaron would be my top 2 though.
I totally forgot about Silk Road. Totally forgot how big Silk Road was at one point.
It was.
User MJ, I shortened the name and took off all the numbers. I had a conversation with my girl about Vanguard SOH. It went along the lines of, what if I spoke to Daybreak and asked them to sell me the rights to the game? Couldn't I collaborate with the modders running the emulator? Then I could start a Kickstarter to buy the game, modify the hell out of it, and release it as Vanguard 2. Then I would technically own the best MMO of all time. Long story short, she said no. She's probably right.
Probably wisely said no.
Probably a good call.
Vanguard is one that I did see come up quite a few times. Go ahead, Q.
To call Marvel Heroes 1000% needs to come back. It won't, but it should. Edit. Troy seems to feel the same.
Yeah, it seemed to Cal chimed in a little early on the episode, and then Troy chimed in. Go ahead, Troy.
Mix XT, Terra needs to come back with something. That combat system, I've still been let down by everything else.
I mean, you can play it on console still. Can't play it on PC, but you can play it on console still. Terra console's still a thing. Old Glory, in the discussion about which game or MMO I would like to see revived, the first one that comes to mind is Tree of Savior. While it's still online, I feel that Ink Games has ruined the game for themselves. According to SteamDB, there's only around 300 players at peak times. Why did they ruin that game? I've spent close to 500 hours playing it, and I really enjoyed it. However, the problem arose with the bots and the measures taken to combat them. Legitimate players were constantly restricted and punished, while the bots' activity persisted. Even when restrictions were implemented, the bots quickly found ways to bypass them within a day or two. So in my opinion, they were incompetent in dealing with the bots, which ultimately led to a low player base and ruined the game. While they made changes to the game to make it easier and more appealing to the general public, because it was grindy at the start, yes it was, it doesn't change the fact that bots ruined most of the game, and last time I checked, there are still bots present. Yeah, I mean, you have to, like, this day and age, I think I assigned one of you Lost Ark dealing with bots/RMTs for today, because they just posted a piece on it. Go ahead, Q. I think I gave that to you, Troy.
You think you gave? I don't know. I don't remember. Great. Game I would bring back, a little graphic and gameplay upgrade would be the Dark Age of Camelot and a DeBomb de Sotor, because the game was broke when it came out, but our days are actually played as more a single player story game than anything else I enjoy.
Yeah, that's Troy. That's Troy. Go ahead, Troy.
Socaris. Tabula Rasa is the game that I would like to see come back. Old school. We have a serious dearth of good non-Star Wars, non-FPS, non-space battle sci-fi MMORPGs. Up until a few years ago, this answer would have actually been City of Heroes. Now I have a new goal.
Yeah, well, yeah, you got some good news on that front at least.
Yeah.
Static Group Live says Vanguard Saga of Heroes, Brad's other game, got pretty decent, but no one was around to see it. Q, finish it up.
Nell Photo, Wildstar, very unique game, miss it terribly.
Yeah, somebody, you know who you are. Somebody, I think it was on YouTube, said something like, if Wildstar came back, I'd play it for a weekend. That was not the question. I specifically said you could not come back for a weekend just for nostalgia. It had to hit your rotation. So yeah, thank you so much for all the feedback. Make sure you chime in on this week's question of the week, which is what's your number 1 and 2, if you're feeling spry, thing that an MMORPG just absolutely has to have for you to be interested in it. And don't forget your weekly bombs. Dub bomb for something good, A bomb for something bad in the world of gaming. We'll be back next week with another episode of the Always Online podcast. Until then, Troy, where can everybody find you?
I'm on the socials at Noob Fridge.
Cute.
Hanging out on Blue Sky at Miscreation.
Yeah, I got it updated there, right there for you, everybody. I made the butterfly a little too big. I was in a hurry. I'll fix that later. It's just a little too big. I'm Mike Byrne. You can follow me on Twitter right there at magicman1 or X or whatever the fuck you want to call it. But more importantly, while you're there and on Blue Sky, follow at MMOBomb so you get tweets every time we go live, post news stories, and more. Stay safe. We'll see you on the servers.